Ladies and gentlemen, you're highly welcome to the Dicalo Consulting YouTube channel. In this session, I'll be teaching you how to use VLOOKUP, pivot tables, as well as HLOOKUP. Basically, you understand that the main purpose of pivot tables is because they enable us to be able to summarize our data in a way that can be presented to management in a presentable manner, or in a reasonable and summarized form that management can use in making decisions. So basically, before you want to make any pivot table, the first thing you need to do is that you have to ensure that there are no empty rows or empty columns within your table or within your data. As a matter of fact, if you scroll through my data here, you realize that there are no empty rows or columns. So we're going to be looking at how we can incorporate these sales order analysis of Dicalo Consulting in a pivot table. Our first exercise, we're going to focus on how we can make use of a pivot table presenting this data so that we can facilitate management decision making. Okay, since we have cross-checked and we've realized that we don't have any empty rows or empty columns, the next step in creating your pivot table is that you need to place your mouse pointer within your data, and then you click on insert. Okay, once you click on insert, you see the first dialog box which appears on the left hand of your screen is what called the pivot table. So you click on what? Pivot table. Now when you click on this pivot table, you have two options that will appear. The first option is from table stroke range, and then the second one will be from external data source. So if you want to extract your pivot table from an external source, you should choose the second one. But if you want to use the data that is existing in that current sheet, you should choose the first one. So since we want to present by this data that we have in this current sheet in our pivot table, we're going to select from table or range. Now when you select from table or range, you realize that the whole table has been selected. Now the next thing is that we need to look at where we want to place our pivot table. The first option is, do you want to place it on a new sheet or an existing sheet? In this situation, we want to place it in an existing sheet. Now where do we want to place it within this existing sheet? We want to put a position, we place our mouse here because we want to put in a position that we can easily compare with the existing data we have. Then you click on OK. Now realize that our pivot table has been created, and the pivot table fields option has actually been created. If you want to, this pivot table fields, it actually helps us in preparing our pivot table, as well as help us in formatting our pivot tables. Understand that everything that we need to do in our pivot table, we have to format it from the pivot table fields. Again, if you want to make use of the formatting tools, you have to place your mouse within the pivot table. If you place it out of the pivot table, it will the pivot table fields will actually disappear. For example, okay, I have placed it out of the pivot table box, and as a result of placing it out of the pivot table one, the pivot table formatting tools have actually disappeared. So let us place it again here, and then we start preparing our pivot tables. So basically, given our data, let us see how we can analyze the sales value of each order from the various regions, and then the salespersons that have actually received these orders. Well, the first thing, we have to choose the region. It's up to us. We can decide to place it under rows or under columns. It's up to us. So let's assume that we want it to be under rows. And then the second thing, let's choose the name of the salesman to be on the column. And now what do we want to see? We want to check the value of each order. So we take total. As a result of placing that total here, we realize that automatically this pivot table has been created, incorporating the names of the various sales persons, total sales in each region, We have three main regions: central, east and west region, and then we have their totals. So it's up to us. Maybe we don't want, if we think that we are not comfortable with the regions appearing on the rows, but rather that we want the regions to appear on the columns and the name of the sales month to appear on the rows, we can simply drag this to the column section, and then we equally drag this to the rows of section. Automatically, I think it's a little bit more presentable now. Now we realize that what there are three regions, and then the number of sales people has equally been incorporated. We equally have a grand total of the rows as well as the columns. Now you realize that with this data we don't know the currency, whether they are stones or what. So normally we are dealing in dollars, so we need to incorporate the value of the dollars in our data. So how do we do this? If we want to incorporate the value of the dollars, we come to what? Sum of total. You click here and then you select value field settings. Now when you click on, you select value field settings, we make use of the number format in changing currencies or formatting our numbers or things like that. So we click on what? Number format. Now when you click on number format, you see the various options that we normally use in formatting. We have general, numbers, currency. So we are interested in putting the currency. Let us assume that we have what? A 0 decimal place. Now we are using what? US dollars. You select the currency and then you click on what? Okay, and okay. Now you understand that what automatically all our data has been formatted, and the value of the currency is what? The US dollars. Now let us see that, okay, normally already we are presented it, assuming that this is the type of data that our manager was interested in. We can just not take this data and then share with the manager, or we cannot copy and paste in a different sheet and share with our manager, right? We need to present it in a way that the labels or the rows, the columns as well as the labels will be well presented in a manner that managers will be impressed with the nature of our report. So let's see, if we want to do any editing here, or we want to change the form of our pivot table or things like that, you always click on what? Design. With this design option, which is appearing on the menu, once you place your mouse within your pivot table, you can always change your design to any type of design that you want. For instance, let's choose this black. You see it has changed. You can choose this, it has changed. You can choose like, okay, this, it has changed. You can change to any type of design that you want. It's up to you. So let us assume that we are using, you can change to black. Any design that you want, you can change it to any design that actually suits your data. Okay, we have actually changed the design, but it's still not that presentable. We want to present it in a report format. So what do? Once we click on this, we come to what? Report layout. You first of all click within your pivot table, you click on design, and then you go to what we call report layout. Basically the format of the report, any report that we prepared in pivot table is in compact form. So we want to change the form of this report from compact to any other option that we believe that will be presentable or will be reasonable for our management to use in decision making. So let's show it in what? Select show in outline form. Now as a result of selecting that outline form, you now show that what this J column, which depicts the name of the salesperson or the salesman, has been clearly shown, as well as the regions equally have been clearly illustrated here, making it very easy for any party to understand that, oh, this column J represents the name of the salesperson or the salesman, and that the regions are represented in KLM, and that N represents the grand total. So we equally realize that we have the grand total of both the columns as well as the rows in our pivot table. Now basically in some circumstances, maybe from the requirement of your managers, you may not want the grand total to appear both at the level of the columns as well as at the level of the rows. So pivot tables formatting gives you, or design gives you that opportunity for you to be able to remove the grand total, maybe at the level of the rows or at the level of the columns. So let's assume that in this situation we don't want the rows maybe at the level of the columns or things like that. So you come to where we have what? Grand totals. Now the first option here shows that off for rows and columns. If we select this first option, it means that the grand total for both the columns and the rows will not be incorporated within our pivot table. It means that they will disappear. Now one on rows and columns. So if we want it to be on rows and columns, then we should choose the second option, like what we have now. Then the third one is in the on for rows only. So if you want the grand total to appear only for rows, you choose the third one, and if you want the grand total to appear only for columns, you choose what? The last one. So let us choose the first option, which says that what? Off for rows and columns. So if we select this option, say off for rows and columns, you're going to realize that what? All the grand totals for both the rows and the columns will disappear. Okay, you see. As a result of us selecting that option now, you realize that the grand total at the level of the columns as well as the rows has disappeared. So let me try another option. You go to design and then you come to our grand totals. So let's assume that we want the grand total to appear on both the rows and the columns. You select the second one. You see, automatically now you realize that what our grand totals have actually been incorporated at the level of the rows as well as the columns. Now let's assume that we want the grand totals to appear only at the level of the rows. So when you come here and you want them to appear only at the level of the rows, you choose what? On for rows only. So basically now you then understand that pivot tables are very good and they enable you to be able to manipulate and present your report in any reasonable way that you want. So let's assume that you don't want these grid lines here or things like that. If you are not comfortable with those lines, or you want to ban those lines, you can ban rows as well as what? Ban columns. Means that you want them to be in a tabular form. Or you can equally ban the headers. You can unban the headers. You see, the headers, you can unban them. You can equally unban the headers. So it's up to you. So here we have actually presented our pivot table in the form of a table, but if we are not comfortable with that, we can remove the banded columns as well as what? The banded rows. So that's our pivot table. Okay, now let's do something. At times maybe you want to count the number of salespeople. Let's assume that we're done with that exercise. Let's take another exercise, and the exercise we want to do now is about we want to count the number of salespeople that are existing within our sales department. So it's very easy. You simply copy the salesman. You copy salesman and place it under rows, and then you equally copy salesman and place it under values. Automatically you realize that what Andrew actually is counting. Andrew actually appeared how many times? 4 times within our pivot table. Gil 5 times, Howard 2, Jordan 5, so and Jones 8 times. So if you want to cross check and verify whether this counting is correct or not, you simply double click on each number of times that each salesman is appearing. So let's cross check that of Jones. You click here. So automatically let's count here and see how many. Okay, select count. So automatically you realize that what Jones is appearing how many times? 8 times. So you can click on any one, cross check just to confirm. Let's check this one also. If I submit, let's submit. ALT control plus. So you have it, ALT equal to sign, you have it, and then you have the total. Then here we show what count, so it's 5. Automatically realize that it means that our data is correct, so the count which we have actually carried here is correct. Now let's do the last step. The last step in this session is that we want to calculate, we want to compute the maximum, minimum, and average totals in each region. So first of all, we copy region, we place our region under rows, and then now we take the total, we place it under this, under values. Like I said, we want to calculate what? The maximum amount. So we go to value field settings, you click on what? Maximum. Okay, automatically the maximum amount has been computed. Again, we want to calculate the minimum amount. Still take the total column, you place it here, click on it, value field settings, minimum amount. Okay, that's it. You want to calculate the average amount, you also come, you take the total, you place it under the value columns, you click on it, you choose value field settings, you go to what? Average. Now you realize that what we now have all the values that we wanted to compute within our pivot table with ease. Now let's assume that we want to change the number of decimal places. If you want to change the number of decimal places to 2 decimal places like the others, this is for average. It's easy. You come here, click on average, value settings, you come to number format, numbers, two decimal places, you click OK. Okay, so automatically average. Now we have what? 2 decimal places in our average. So in our next session, we're going to learn more advanced formulas on pivot tables, as well as learn how to prepare our pivot table chart and graph, how to convert our data in the form of a chart or in a graph that can be easily understood by any layperson. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel in order to support our activities, so that once we upload a new video, you'll be updated. Thank you. Do not hesitate to recommend our videos to your colleagues. We are a management accounting consulting firm. We offer management and consultancy services, as well as professional training. So kindly recommend your friends or your business practitioners to subscribe to our YouTube channels for any updates. Thank you.